Bole Baba Ki Jai. If you remember in the last reading, things didn't go so well. Sati went to her father's yagya, at which he had not invited Shiva or Sati. And when she saw that he was being totally arrogant and disrespectful to her beloved husband, who is the Lord of the universe, she burnt herself. When Shiva heard that, he was unbelievably crazed and angry and sad, tormented. So we'll continue on then. With a terrible yell, Shiva sprang to his feet. He tore a long tuft of his hair from his head. His grief was as grotesque dance that contorted his limbs in manic snatches of rhythm, while his bloodshot eyeballs rolled in their sockets, reminding you uncomfortably of the third eye, which so far mercifully remained shut. In the throes of that wild dance, he struck the mountaintop with his jata. Even the Ganas shut their ears at that report. The tuft split into two. The earth cracked open in two places, or was it the sky? The very stuff of reality. From the first cleft sprang Virabhadra, towering over the mountains with 1,000 faces, 1,000 arms, and 2,000 staring eyes. He stood before Shiva. You've never seen the likes of that. He held 1,000 weapons aloft, clubs, swords, maces, conch, chakra, arrows. He was an army by himself. He blazed like the fire at the end of time. His hair shone like the sun. His mouth was a chasm with enormous carved fangs. His belly was as big as the earth. His lips were thick as planets. The crescent moon decked his jata, adorned with garlands from the heads of the great gods. He wore a tiger skin dripping with fresh blood. He shone with 1,000,000 precious jewels. His measureless chest bore 10,000 priceless necklaces. He was a mountain draped in pearls with the ocean deep. Countless flames licked around him like his skin, smeared from his head to his feet with ashes. From the other side of Shiva's jata sprang horrible Bhadra Kali. Her skin was as dark and thick. Her face was hideous. She wore a necklace of human heads, some of them dead, but not all. She dripped snakes from her body, and her fangs dripped blood. She held a curved sword, and her black mouth gaped wide. Her tongue lolled red, and she came howling. So even Virabhadra backed away from her at first. Virabhadra was only just born, it said in a voice fathomless as the oceanic sky. Shiva, the sun, the moon, and the fire are your eyes. Shall I drain the seas for you? Shall I smash the mountains? Shall I ash the universe or devour the devas? Lord, my right side throbs with your blessings. Today I can conquer the galaxies, Almighty Shiva, command me. Shiva blessed Virabhadra in a truly awesome voice. He said, Jaya Jaya, Vijaya Baba. Daksha performs a yagya at Gangadvara. Go and raise that sacrifice. Kill the sacrificer. If there is any Deva, Gandharva, or Yaksha there, burn him. If Vishnu or Brahma, Indra or Yama stands against you, kill them. Go now, come back to me only when you have destroyed. Shiva's breath was fire. Thousands of Rudras more were born from the breath-flaming Ganas to be Virabhadra and Mahakali soldiers. Mounted on a bull among a guardian of lions, Virabhadra marched at the head of the dreadful force. With Mahakali went the 9 Durgas, Kali, Katyani, Isani, Chanmunda, Munda Mardini, Bhadrakali, Bhadra, Vishnavi, and the goblins too. Durga's yogins went with the legion, 64 and terrible, each with their thousands of ganas. Majestically that army swept to the place of Daksha's yagya. When Virabhadra set out to kill Daksha, a heavenly rain of flowers flowed upon him. After Brigu's fire demons routed Shiva's ganas, the ceremonies and celebrations at Daksha's yagna had resumed. As soon as Virabhadra set out from Kailash, all the guests, the devas, and the rest felt a tremor of fear. Evil omens thronged the sacrifice. Daksha's left arm, his thigh, and eye throbbed sharply. An earthquake shook the place. As in a dream, Daksha saw a mysterious and malignant cluster of stars at noon. The sun was blocked with black patches. A dark ring glowed balefully around the star. The quarters were squalid and gloomy. Strange comets fell out of the heavens. Vultures circled low over the yagya, darkening the sacrificial platform. Jackals howled at the perimeter of the conclave of the rishis and devas. Meteors fell, streaming gusts of air blew swarms of moths and locusts into that tranquil place. Daksha's wonderful yagyashala bent and creaked in those ill-will winds. Convulsions gripped Daksha and the devas. They began to vomit. Their spirits trembled like lamps about to be put out. They panicked as if they were struck with weapons. Tears coursed down Daksha's face. His eyes were like the dying lotuses of summer. To those eyes, the devas appeared to drip blood from their limbs. The four quarters grew dark as night, though it was midday, and all around glowed a sinister aura of doom. Even Vishnu was touched by the moment's fear. In that fear, the devas cried, "We are cursed." They fell on the ground like trees growing beside a river in spate. Terrified, Daksha ran to Vishnu, who alone seemed largely unaffected by the elemental omens. "What are these evil portents, Lord? You must protect me, guardian of everything. Don't let my yagya be ruined." Vishnu said, "This terror is because Shiva has not been worshipped here. Your daughter killed herself in that sorrow. You have sinned, Daksha. It will be hard to save you." Daksha sat on the ground and beat his head low. His face turned deathly pale. Then he heard the distant roar of the advent by earth and air of Virabhadra and his army. Quaking in every limb, Daksha fell at Mahavishnu's feet. "Only you can save me now." Vishnu said dully, "We cannot stop Virabhadra, even with worship. Be consoled, Daksha. I too will pay for being here. I will also burn." Virabhadra was at the gate. Led by haughty Indra, the devas were ready to fight. Indra laughed at Vishnu's fear. Then from the air, Virabhadra saw the satra with the devas' colorful flags flapping above it. He saw thousands of sacrificial vessels. He saw the yagya fire kindled and heard the mantras going. Virabhadra stamped his foot, rocking the earth. He roared as the devas, so that the devas nearest him shrank from the sound. Even the wind lurched in fear when Virabhadra roared. Now the moment of reckoning was here. Daksha stood queerly unafraid at the altar, facing Virabhadra calmly. Daksha said, "Who are you and what do you want?" Virabhadra still rumbled like a thundercloud, but a ghostly smile curved his lips. He fixed Daksha with a glare. Bhadra growled, "We are the followers of Shiva, of endless splendor. We have come for our share of the sacrifices at the yagya." Daksha said, "The mantras are our authorities. No mantras prescribe your share in the yagya." Before he finished, the mantras themselves cried, "Devas, your minds are taken with tamasic evil energy. Why do you do not deserve the first share in the yagya. let it be Shiva's. None of the devas paid any attention to what the mantras said, and the mantras fled into the sky. Virabhadra said to the devas, "You are so arrogant with power, you do not accept even the authority of the mantras. Vain devas, I will drive you out of your arrogance with your lives." With a flash of fire from his eyes, Virabhadra burnt up the Veda, the altar, the Gana Lord, big as hills, uprooted the post and flung them away like wisp of straw. They seized the priest, the sacrificial horse, and cast them into the Ganga. They smashed the golden vessels of the sacrifice and waded into the foodstuffs piled high for the guests, gorging themselves and throwing the rest onto the sacrificial floor. Seeing all this, most of the devas fled towards their heaven without pausing to give fight. Only Indra and the Lokpalas stood firm with any stomach for battle. Virabhadra was furious when he saw the devas in flight, unengaged, uninjured. He roared again. He spewed flames from his mouth. A wild elephant charging, he chased the fleeing devas, his trishul aloft, shrieking in delight. Bhadrakali pierced the devas in the sky with 1,000 flaming spears. Indra, O Agni, sang Virabhadra, come Surya, come Kubara, Varuna, Yama, Sesa, O clever ones, come to me. You came here for worship, come to me, I will give you avadana. Avadana, of course, means both worship and dismembering. So he began and clipped off the nose of Saraswati and lopped off Vasu's arm. Somehow he ground into the ground like a glowworm under his heel. Brigu was smashed down. Swata and the Dakshinas, the mantras and the tantras, and all the women were fled away screaming. Quickly, that Yagyashala was devastated. The silver domes were smashed. The twang of Virabhana's bow rent the heavens, and he beheaded the stags in the air. At last, Vishnu came to face Virabhadra. Virabhadra's face grew dark when he saw the blue one. He knit his brows and stood growling like a lion. He taunted Vishnu. Hari, how did you become the guardian of this Shivaless yagya? Didn't you see what Sati did for her lord's honor? Did Dichi not leave, yet you stayed to protect Daksha's sacrifice? You too are greedy for worship, long arms, and I will give you also a bandana. Mounted on Garuda with his Sudarshana humming at his finger, Vishnu faced Virabhadra in the sky. Bhadra rode a dazzling chariot given him by Shiva, stocked with all kinds of weapons. The devas quailed at the blast. They prepared to flee again. At once in reply, Vishnu blew a deafening note on his conch. He froze the Gana army for a moment. Virabhada's forces stopped their ears with bloody palms. The two armies fell roaring at each other. Indra faced Nandi, the king of the Devas, struck Shiva's Gana in the chest with his Vajra, and Nandi pierced Indra with his Trishul. Then Bhadrakali was among them with a conflagration. She came wearing wild elephants for earrings, and she let flow the Deva's blood in rivers. Thirstily, she quaffed that gore in the air and on the earth, and the yagya grounds shone scarlet. The quarter steamed with yakshas and green nagas and wise cities who braved the tumultuous battle to watch the duel between Vishnu and Virabhadra. As a cloud may the earth was livid, as a cloud may the earth with livid rain. Vishnu covered the Gana army with arrows from his great bow. The Ganas screamed, they fled back in waves from the ferocious blue Vishnu. Now Virabhadra flew into the fray. He struck Vishnu with an arrow like a serpent, blazing like the sun. Vishnu fell in a faint, for the power of Dharma was against him now, and the enemy irresistible because his cause was just. When Vishnu fell, a dark and eerie luster arose everywhere like the shadow of the apocalypse. However, in a moment he awoke with a roar that shook the quarters. His eyes crimson, he raised his inexhaustible Sudarshana and cast it at the Ganas. He strung his bow with an arrow that had the name emblazoned on it in letters of fire. When he shot that arrow at Virabhadra, the Rudra cut it into slivers with his own wizardly shaft. He broke the saringa in Vishnu's hand with a silver volley, and he singed Garuda's wings with 2 astras. With yoga and wrath, Vishnu now spilled 100 haris from his body, all with Sankha, Chakra, and Gada. With a mad laugh, Virabhadra froze Indra's hands with the Vajra. He froze all the others with just a look. 1,000 armed, every hand aiming weapons in different direction. Virabhadra was like Brahma emitting the creatures. He covered the quarters with his arrows. The Devas fell like flies on the battlefield, arms hewn off, faces pierced, eyes exploded. Roaring insanely and still laughing like the thunder, the Mahagana now sought Daksha, who had hidden among the ruin of the altar. Whimpering, his clothes soiled in terror, Daksha was dragged by his cheeks from hiding. Virabhadra raised his sword and hewed at Daksha's neck. By the power of Daksha's yoga, his head could not be severed. With his bare hands, then, Virabhadra tore his son's head from his neck. Tore Daksha's head from his neck and kicked it like a ball to Madrakali. For some time, they kicked it back and forth until, satisfied with revenge, Bhadra kicked the ruined head into the yagya fire. As soon as this was done, Narada, Shiva appeared in the sky above his hair, the galaxies, his eyes, the sun and the moon. Shiva was calm again, smiling down on Virabhadra and the frozen Devas. He freed the Devas from Bhadra's spell, and they fell on their faces before Mahadevi, Deva, the god of gods. Vishnu said feelingly, "Obeisance, O hidden secret of all lore. We have been punished for the sin of coming to Daksha's yagya. Forgive us, Shiva, for the due has been paid in full, with dishonor and with death. Now be merciful." Brahma too then came to this place, sodden with Deva's bloods, and Shiva laughed. I folded my palms to that boundless deity. I said humbly, "Shiva, destroyer of misery, please forgive us." The Devas that had survived the battle chimed in with some contrite worship. Gone was every vestige of pride. Only shock remained with Indra and his kind. "What had to be has been," Shiva said quietly. "Besides, you are all my children." He made a mystic mudra of life-giving with his high hands, and all the dead Devas and Rishis rose as if from a deep slumber, their limbs restored by his grace, their wounds healed. They prostrated before Shiva, who chided Virabhadra, kneeling before him. "You have been too harsh on the Rishis and the Devas. Where is Daksha, whose yagya this was?" Virabhadra brought Daksha, headless body, and flung it in the dust at Shiva's feet. "Where is his head?" asked Shiva mildly. "I threw it into the fire, Lord," answered Bhadra anxiously, as if expecting to be reprimanded. Shiva said, "Let Daksha be revived. Let him have the head of a goat. A sacrificial goat's head was brought and joined to the neck of Daksha. Hands folded, Daksha stood before Lord Shiva. Greatest of gods, forgive me, wretched sinner that I am, deluded by vanity. Forgive me 1,000 times for not remembering who you are. You are the Lord even of Vishnu. Shiva, you are the great creator and the pervader. I wounded you with evil words. Ocean of mercy, may I pay for each one with a life of penance. Placing his hand on Daksha's goat head, Shiva said gently, Fear no more, Daksha. Complete your yagya. Placing his hand on Daksha's head, he gave him blessing. That yagya was completed, and Shiva had pride of place at the foremost deity. He presided over the fateful sacrifice, and the main offering was made to him. Only when Shiva returned to Kailash did he show any grief for Sati. He called his main ganas to him, Nandan and a few others, and told them about his short and blessed time with her. Tears ran down Shiva's face, and he sobbed bitterly. The only lasting bliss is in the Atman. This would never have happened if I had not allowed Brahma and Vishnu to distract me from my tapasya. My friends, I vow it shall never happen again. So told Brahma to Narada, and Vedavyasa shared it with the other munis and rishis. Shiva Mahadev Bhagwan ki jai, Bole Baba ki jai, Harakandashwari Mata ki jai.